After 15 years of grinding, my boss ignored my $1.6 million deal success, said, "Try harder next year," and mocked me with a printer gift. Now I earn more than him. And karma came with a paycheck and a smirk. Hey Reddit, buckle up because I've got one of those "my boss thought I was replaceable" stories that actually has a good ending. I used to work for a guy who treated effort like it was free labor, and loyalty like it was a joke. After years of being underpaid and talked down to, I decided to stop playing his game. And let's just say, by the time it was over, I was earning triple his salary and sleeping just fine. I used to think working for a defense contractor meant doing important stuff: national security, innovation, cutting-edge tech. Reality check? It was mostly paperwork, waiting on approvals that took longer than the moon landing, and babysitting machines that sounded like dying lawnmowers. I worked as a project engineer, which in this company basically meant guy who fixes everything while the boss takes credit. The place looked like a museum of bad decisions. Machines older than my great-grandfather, fluorescent lights that flickered like horror movie props, and a break room microwave that only worked if you held the door shut. Every week, someone would joke that if World War III ever started, our machines would die of shock before producing anything useful. My boss, Todd, was the kind of guy who thought leadership meant talking louder than everyone else. He strutted around like he owned the building, usually holding a coffee he didn't make himself and pretending to read reports he clearly didn't understand. He loved throwing around phrases like team synergy and work family whenever he messed something up and wanted everyone else to take the blame. One Monday morning, he really outdid himself. We had a shipment of components going to one of our government clients, and thanks to Todd's brilliant shortcut, the paperwork got sent to the wrong department. The whole order was delayed 2 weeks. Everyone knew it was his fault. Everyone except Todd. At the next team meeting, he stood in front of us like a disappointed dad. "Guys," he said, doing his fake serious voice, "this delay cost us money. And when the company loses, we all lose. So this month, everyone's paycheck will be adjusted accordingly." Adjusted. That was his word for, "I'm docking your pay because I can't admit I screwed up." The room went dead silent. I looked around, waiting for someone to speak. Finally, my coworker Ben raised his hand. "Sir, with all due respect, that delay came from—" Todd cut him off. "Ben, I don't need excuses. We're a family here. Sometimes we all have to take hits for the team. If you don't like it, maybe this isn't the place for you." Ben shut his mouth, and I swear I saw smoke coming out of his ears. "Family," Todd called it. The kind where the dad burns dinner and blames the kids for it. If this is family, I want to be disowned, please. That same week, our assembly line went down because one of the machines, some rusted monster from probably World War I, finally gave up. The thing had been rattling and leaking oil for months. We'd all been begging him to replace it. Todd, being the visionary he was, refused. "That machine's got character," he said. "They don't build them like that anymore." Yeah, because they learned how to build machines that actually work. So instead of buying a new one, he had us patch it up. Translation: spend 2 days duct taping the problem so he could save a few $1,000s and brag to upper management about cost efficiency. One night, I stayed late trying to fix that machine. Sparks flying, grease everywhere, my patience hanging by a thread. Todd passed by on his way out, paused and said, "Good hustle, champ," before leaving me there covered in oil. No offer to help, no thanks, just that smug little smile. That was Todd in a nutshell. Lazy, cheap, and allergic to responsibility. Despite all that, I kept my head down and worked hard. I was the guy who came in early, double-checked every drawing, made sure everyone on my team was covered. I believed in the system. I thought if you did your job better than everyone else, someone would notice. One Friday, about 2 years in, Todd called me into his office. The man had 2 moods: fake motivational speaker or power-tripping hall monitor. That day, it was the first one. "Take a seat," he said, gesturing like he was about to promote me to vice president or something. "You've been doing good work, kid." "Real good." "Thanks," I said cautiously. Compliments from him usually came with a trapdoor. "I've got a project I think you can handle," he said, leaning back in his chair. "Big one. Defense system upgrade for a new Air Force client. You'll lead a team of 7. Think you're ready for that kind of responsibility?" Was I ready? I'd been running half his projects unofficially for months. "Yeah," I said. "I can handle it." He grinned, clearly taking credit in his head already. "Good. Make me proud. This is your chance to prove yourself." I left his office trying not to roll my eyes. Prove myself? I'd been proving myself every day while he played boss of the year. Still, I couldn't help feeling a spark of excitement. Leading a project like this was a big deal. Maybe this was the break I needed. Walking back to my cubicle, I passed that same dying machine wheezing in the corner. I swear it looked at me like it was saying, "Good luck, kid. You'll need it." That was the start of it. My big opportunity, my chance to finally step up, make something of myself, and maybe, just maybe, earn some actual respect. That was the thought running through my head the morning I got the official project brief. The title looked fancy: Lead Systems Engineer, Airborne Defense Integration Program. Translation: make a complicated system work while juggling deadlines, suppliers, and a boss who wouldn't know engineering if it hit him in the face. My team was small: 4 engineers, 1 designer, and 2 admin staff. Good people, sharp minds, but tired from years of being micromanaged. When I introduced myself in our first meeting, I told them straight, "Look, I'm not Todd. I don't believe in yelling or stealing your credit. You do your job right, I'll have your back." The look of relief on their faces told me everything about what kind of leadership they'd been dealing with. At first, things went smooth. I was on fire, organizing everyone, solving problems, and actually enjoying the work again. Every milestone we hit, Todd found a way to make it sound like he did it. He'd walk into meetings just long enough to say, "Good job, team, but we can do better." That was his favorite line. Do better. Didn't matter if we hit every metric. He'd still say it like it was a script. Once, after we finished the entire system architecture 2 weeks early, I sent him the report. He replied with one line: "Looks okay. Let's aim higher next time." Higher than 2 weeks early? Sure, Todd. Maybe I'll invent teleportation while I'm at it. Then came the brutal part: testing. We had to fly out to the Nevada site for 3 weeks to oversee system integration. Long days, no sleep, endless heat, and the kind of coffee that tasted like burnt wires. Half my time was spent troubleshooting stuff that should have been replaced a decade ago. The Air Force reps were watching closely, so the pressure was real. Todd, of course, didn't come. "You've got it handled," he said over the phone, probably sitting in his air-conditioned office while I melted in the desert. The second week almost ended the whole thing. During a late-night test, the control system crashed. Full failure. Lights dead, alarms blaring, and our Air Force contact, Captain Reyes, staring at me like I'd just crashed a jet. If we didn't fix it before morning, we'd be in breach territory and at risk of losing the contract. I told everyone to go get food and rest. "I'll handle this," I said. They hesitated, but they trusted me. For the next 10 hours, I lived on vending machine snacks and adrenaline. I tore through code lines, swapped out modules, and rebuilt a part of the control unit from scratch using spare components. Around 5:30 a.m., when the desert sky was starting to glow orange, the system finally booted up. Every function came online. No errors, no glitches. I leaned back and laughed like a maniac. I hadn't slept in 36 hours, but we were back in business. When Reyes came in and saw the system running perfectly, his jaw dropped. "You fixed this yourself?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, rubbing my eyes. "Didn't have much else to do." He laughed and clapped my shoulder. "You just saved us months of headache." Word spread fast. By noon, our project was the talk of the site. The Air Force contact sent a glowing email to upper management, praising me by name for exceptional leadership and problem solving. Guess who suddenly appeared at the site 2 days later? Todd. He showed up wearing aviator sunglasses like he was in Top Gun and started introducing himself to everyone. During the next meeting, he said, "Our team did a great job recovering from the incident." Reyes shut him down instantly. "Actually, your engineer here fixed it. Single-handedly." We were very impressed. Todd's face turned red. "Ah, yes," he muttered. "Good work, good teamwork." He avoided eye contact with me the entire time. When we finally wrapped testing, the Air Force signed off on the system with 0 defects. The product went live, and 6 months later, it brought in over $1.6 million in new contracts. The company even filed a patent listing me as an inventor for one of the subsystems I designed, the first one they'd had in years. They plastered the project all over the internal newsletter. Guess whose name wasn't mentioned once? Yep. Even with the usual corporate nonsense, part of me was proud. My team had done something incredible. They started walking taller, joking more, actually believing in themselves again. I made sure they got recognition, even if I had to write the recommendation emails myself. The success got us nominated for the Department of Defense Contractor Technical Team of the Year award, and a few months after that, we were flown to DC for the ceremony. The DC ceremony landed right before annual reviews. Todd went, of course, pretending he was part of the brain trust behind it all. I just smiled and let him talk. Everyone in that room knew who really pulled the weight. By the time we got back, I was sure this was my year. After everything I'd done, the sleepless nights, The $1 million project, the patent, the award. There was no way they could ignore me now. I walked into that office thinking I was finally about to be treated like what I was worth. I had no idea how wrong I was. Performance review day always felt like waiting for exam results, except your grade determined how much canned soup you could afford that month. I sat across from Todd, who looked unusually cheerful, like he'd just discovered how mirrors work. He tapped his pen on the table and said, well, you've had quite the year, haven't you? Yeah, I said, trying to sound casual. Inside, my heart was racing. I'd led $1 million project, earned a patent, saved the company from disaster, and put us on a DoD nomination list. If that didn't earn me a promotion, nothing would. He flipped through my review papers like he was reading a menu. You're a real asset to this company, he said, nodding. 10 out of 10 on your performance metrics. You've done outstanding work. I leaned back a little, waiting for the "so we're promoting you" part. He looked up, smiling. So your raise will be 3%? I blinked. 3%? He nodded, like he just handed me the keys to the city. Same as everyone else. Consistency across the board, you know? We value fairness here. Fairness? I made that company $1.6 million in new revenue. I was the reason they got that award nomination. I was the guy. And the promotion? I asked carefully. He sighed, pretending to be thoughtful. Yeah, about that. We decided to promote Kevin instead. Kevin, my junior engineer, the guy I trained. I felt my stomach drop. Wait, you promoted someone on my team? He nodded again. You've been great, but Kevin showed initiative. You'll get your turn. Try harder next year. That line. Try harder next year. I'd heard him say it to others before, but hearing it aimed at me felt like a punch. I sat there, staring at him, waiting for him to crack and say he was kidding. He didn't. My hands tightened around the armrest. Sir, with respect, I led the team that got us that contract. I worked weekends, traveled 100 days last year, and fixed a system failure alone. What exactly would trying harder look like? He leaned back, giving me that fake fatherly tone. It's not just about what you do. It's about what management sees. Maybe next year you focus more on visibility. Visibility. He meant sucking up to the right people. And as if the insult wasn't enough, he stood up, grinning like a used car salesman. Oh, and I've got something for you, he said, walking over to the corner. He grabbed a big box and pushed it toward me. It was a printer. Brand new, still in the plastic. For me? I asked, confused. Yeah, he said proudly. You've been asking for better tools. Figured this'll make your life easier. Consider it a thank you gift. A thank you printer. I'd built $1 million product, and my reward was office equipment. The irony was painful enough to laugh at. So I did. Wow, I said. Guess I'll print out all my disappointment in high resolution now. He didn't even get the joke. Just patted my shoulder and said, Keep up the good work, champ. By the time I left his office, my head was pounding. I stopped by HR, thinking maybe they'd confirm it was a mistake. They didn't. The HR manager looked at me with that rehearsed pity face. Promotions are based on multiple factors, she said. You're definitely on track for next year. Next year. Always next year. When I got back to my desk, the whole team was quiet. They'd already heard. Kevin looked embarrassed, like he didn't even want the promotion. Hey man, he said softly. You deserved it more. I forced a smile. Don't worry about it. But inside, something broke, not in a dramatic movie way. Just that quiet, cold feeling you get when you realize effort means nothing to people who don't value it. I went home early. My wife took one look at me and asked, Bad day? Bad year, I said. I told her everything. How they praised me, then handed me crumbs and a printer. She just shook her head. You can't stay there forever, you know. You're not a doormat. That night, I couldn't sleep. I just kept replaying Todd's words. Try harder next year. The same man who stole credit, avoided responsibility, and couldn't fix a paper jam was telling me to try harder. The next morning, I walked into work and looked around at everyone's tired faces. The fluorescent lights hummed. The ancient machine in the corner wheezed like it was still mad about surviving another week. And Todd was in his office pretending to be busy. That was the moment I realized loyalty in that place was a one-way street. We were all just gears in Todd's rusted machine. And me? I was done being part of it. No more free overtime. No more proving myself. From that day on, I decided if they weren't going to value me, I'd start planning for someone who would. But first, I had to make it through another week sitting across from the man who gave me a printer instead of a promotion. After that meeting, something in me just flipped. I stopped caring. All those late nights, skipped lunches, and weekends I'd spent saving projects, Over. I started clocking in at 8 o'clock sharp, clocking out at 4 o'clock sharp. Not a single minute extra. If a meeting ran late, I'd stand up mid-sentence and say, "Sorry, I'm at 40 hours for the week," then walk out. The first time I did that, Todd's face looked like someone had unplugged his ego. "Where are you going?" he barked. "Home," I said. My shift ended. He blinked like he couldn't believe I said it. "We're a team, remember?" "Yeah," I said, grabbing my bag. And the teams clocked out. From that point on, I was done. No volunteering for extra testing, no staying up to fix his mistakes, no pretending to be motivated by his "we're a family" speeches. My new motto was, do exactly what I'm paid for, not an inch more. And the best part? My productivity didn't even drop. Turns out, when you cut out pointless meetings and fake urgency, you get a lot done in 40 hours. Coworkers started to notice. "Man, you seem calmer," one said while we were in the lab. "You used to look like you were fighting off a nervous breakdown." "I retired from caring," I said. "It's peaceful." He laughed, but later that day he stopped by my desk and lowered his voice. "You know, I saw this happen before," he said. "Guy named Harold. Same story, worked his tail off, saved a project, got passed over for promotion. Boss said, try harder next year. He left 6 months later and doubled his salary somewhere else." I looked at him. "Did Todd do it to him too?" "Yep," he said. "Todd's got a pattern. Promotes the easy ones, not the good ones. Makes him feel safer." That hit harder than I expected. I wasn't just another case of bad luck. I was part of a cycle. Todd's little system of keeping good employees just demotivated enough to stay put. "Don't waste years waiting," the guy said. "Start looking." Seriously. That night, I did something different. Instead of coming home and doom-scrolling company emails, I opened the internal training portal. The company had this professional development fund that barely anyone used. Todd never mentioned it because he didn't want to spend a dime. But it was there, and technically, every employee could use it for certifications, software training, and technical workshops. So I went all in. Signed up for advanced CAD simulation, 3D modeling, and systems design courses. I even found a certification in finite element analysis that I'd always wanted to do. Each one got billed to the company, approved automatically because nobody actually checked. By week 2, my schedule looked completely different. I did my job during work hours, went home on time, spent evenings learning stuff that'd make me twice as valuable. Somewhere else. Todd barely noticed. He was too busy micromanaging everyone else. If someone spent too long in the restroom, he'd ask what critical business they were conducting. If a part got delayed, he'd call 3 meetings to discuss whose fault it could be, never realizing it was always his. One morning, he walked past my desk and frowned at the sight of a textbook open next to my laptop. "What's all that?" he asked. "Training material," I said casually. "Company approved." He didn't like that. "You should be focusing on your current projects, not wasting time on stuff you might never use." "Don't worry," I said, smiling. "It's for professional growth. You said we're a family, right? Gotta make the family stronger." He grunted and walked away, muttering something about employees these days. The best part of doing the bare minimum was watching how much it annoyed him. He'd find any excuse to try and guilt me into doing more. "The client wants faster updates." Or, "We could really use your help on this new bid," but I'd just nod and say, "Sorry, Todd, I'm at capacity." It drove him nuts. One Friday, he cornered me in the hallway. "Look," he said, lowering his voice like we were having a heart-to-heart. "I know you're upset about the promotion, but that's how business works. You can't just shut down on me." I smiled. "I'm not shut down. I'm just working efficiently." He didn't get it. He thought control was respect, and he couldn't stand that he didn't have mine anymore. Meanwhile, my coworker kept checking in. "How's the training going?" he asked one afternoon. "Good," I said. "Turns out I'm better at learning on my own than waiting for management to figure things out." He grinned. "You're planning your exit, aren't you?" I didn't answer. I just smirked. The next few months, I quietly stacked certifications like trophies. Every time I finished one, I added it to my resume. I didn't tell anyone except that one coworker who'd encouraged me. He'd just nod and say, "Good. Make them regret it." By the end of the quarter, I had more qualifications than most of the senior engineers in the company. Todd still hadn't noticed, too busy nitpicking other people's formatting on reports. It was ironic. The same training fund he never told anyone about was becoming the escape route for the one guy he should have fought to keep. And I wasn't just building skills anymore. I was building an exit plan. The training programs turned out to be more useful than I'd imagined. They weren't just about learning software or design techniques. They were networking gold mines. Every session was filled with engineers from other companies, Some from competitors, others from contractors bidding for the same government work we did. That's how I met Mark. He was a senior systems engineer from a rival firm. Older guy, calm voice, sharp eyes. The kind of professional who didn't waste words. We ended up sitting next to each other during a week-long advanced simulation course. Between lectures and coffee breaks, we started trading stories about work disasters, bad bosses, and half-broken machines that never should have survived past the 80s. When I mentioned Todd, Mark just laughed. Let me guess. Takes credit for everything? Calls it teamwork? Exactly, I said. You know the type? Oh, I've met plenty, he said, smirking. They're usually the reason people like you end up working for people like me. That got my attention. Over the next few days, he dropped hints. Little things about how his company was expanding, looking for people who could handle leadership roles, especially those with defense system experience. He didn't outright say apply, but he didn't have to. I could read between the lines. Word of advice, he said one afternoon, packing up his laptop. Don't waste too long trying to prove yourself to someone who already decided you're beneath him. When you're good, the right people notice. I kept that line in my head the entire flight back home. Meanwhile, back at work, the atmosphere hadn't changed much. Todd was still doing his daily rounds, nitpicking everyone's reports and finding new ways to make small tasks sound urgent. My team just went along with it. They were too scared to push back. The only difference now was me. I wasn't scared anymore. Kevin, the guy who'd gotten promoted over me, stopped by one day. He looked exhausted. I envy you, he said. You seem unbothered. Got tired of playing the game, I said. What's up? He sighed. They're making me do this MBA program. Said it's mandatory for senior engineers if I want to keep the role. But there's a catch. I have to stay with the company for 5 years after finishing, or I have to pay back all the tuition. That explained everything. They'd given him the promotion just to chain him down. I didn't say it out loud, but it made me realize how much freer I was. No golden handcuffs, no fake promises. I could leave whenever I wanted. A few weeks later, I got my chance to test how much Todd would tolerate. It was a Tuesday morning, and I was at my desk reviewing a design spec when Todd barged in without knocking. You've been awfully quiet lately, he said. No late-night emails, no extra meetings. What's going on? You finally get tired. Just focusing on what I'm paid for, I said, without looking up. He crossed his arms. You think doing the bare minimum is going to get you promoted? You'll never move up with that attitude. I smiled. You're probably right, Todd. I'll make sure to remember that when I move out instead. His face twisted. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, I said, leaning back in my chair. Just saying maybe I'm done chasing promotions that don't exist. He stepped closer, voice rising. You're lucky to even have this job. You think someone else is going to put up with that mouth of yours? I looked him dead in the eye. Maybe, but I'll let them find out. That set him off. You know, if you keep this attitude up, I could fire you right now. I grinned. Do it. He blinked, thrown off. What? I said do it, I repeated. You'd have to explain to upper management why the only guy who knows how to maintain the main system suddenly disappeared. You sure you want to deal with that? He stared at me, speechless, his jaw clenching so tight I could hear his teeth grind. Then, without another word, he turned and stormed out. It was the most satisfying silence I'd ever heard. After that, Todd mostly avoided me. He'd occasionally try to throw a sarcastic comment my way. Don't work too hard, champ! But I'd just smile and say, wouldn't dream of it, boss. By then, I'd already started polishing my resume. I listed every certification I'd earned, every project I'd led, every system I'd rescued from near death. I sent it to a few defense contractors, including Mark's company, figuring I'd test the waters. 2 days later, I got a call from an unknown number. Hey, the voice said, this is Lisa from Aerodyne Systems. We got your resume from Mark. He said we should talk. Just like that, my exit plan became real. We talked for 30 minutes, and by the end, she said, we're impressed. Can you come in for an interview next week? Absolutely, I said, trying to sound calm, even though I was already picturing Todd's face when I handed in my resignation. I hung up, leaned back in my chair, and looked at that stupid printer Todd gave me. It sat in the corner, collecting dust, like a monument to all the wasted effort I'd given this place. Not anymore. This wasn't just about leaving a bad boss. It was about walking away from everything that tried to convince me I wasn't worth more. And soon, I was going to prove just how wrong they were. The interview with Aerodyne Systems was scheduled for the following Wednesday. I showed up in a clean button-down, calm but focused. Their facility looked nothing like ours. Modern, efficient, everything actually worked. I met with a panel of 3 engineers and a project manager. They didn't waste time asking fluff questions like, "What's your biggest weakness?" Instead, they said, "Tell us about a time you solved something no one else could." So I told them about Nevada, the system crash, the overnight rebuild, the morning when I got the control unit running again. They listened, asked technical follow-ups, and nodded. No fake smiles, no fake corporate talk, just respect. When we wrapped up, the manager, Lisa, the same one who'd called me, shook my hand. "You're exactly the kind of person we're looking for," she said. "You'll hear from us soon." 2 days later, she called. "We'd like to make an offer." I braced myself. "The base salary is double what you're currently making," she said, "plus overtime, quarterly bonuses, and relocation support if you ever need it. You'd be leading a small team for our next defense integration contract." I nearly laughed, not because it was funny, but because it felt surreal. I'd spent years killing myself for a man who thought a 3% raise and a printer were good motivation. And now another company was offering triple that to do the same job, with actual appreciation attached. "I accept," I said immediately. "Great," she said. "We'll start the background check and send over the NDA and onboarding paperwork. Welcome to Aerodyne, officially." The process went fast. The recruiter was easy to work with, and the HR team treated me like a human being instead of a payroll number. My clearance was already active, so they crossed it over and started me on unclassified work while the rest processed. Within a week, everything else was finalized. Now came the fun part, resignation day. I walked into Todd's office holding a clean envelope with my 2-week notice inside. He was pretending to be busy, flipping through a stack of papers he probably hadn't read. "Hey, Todd," I said casually. "Got a minute?" "Make it quick," he said, not looking up. "Sure thing." I set the envelope on his desk. "I'm putting in my 2 weeks." He froze mid-turn, like his brain needed a second to reboot. "You're what?" "I've accepted another position." He blinked at me, then laughed. This weird, forced sound that made him look uncomfortable. "Come on. Don't joke like that. You're not going anywhere." "I am," I said simply. The color drained from his face. "Why? Is this about the promotion thing?" "Look, that's water under the bridge. It's about me realizing I don't need to beg for respect," I interrupted. "I've got a better opportunity. Better pay, better leadership." He leaned forward, voice rising. "Better pay? How much are they offering you?" I told him the number. He blinked again, then laughed nervously. That's more than I make." "Yeah," I said. "I know." For a second, the room went dead quiet, except for the sound of his pen rolling off the desk. "You'd really walk away after all we've invested in you?" he said finally. "After everything we've done to train you?" I smiled. "You mean the classes I found myself? Using the training fund you never told us about?" His jaw tightened. "You're being ungrateful." "Maybe," I said, "but I'd rather be ungrateful and respected than loyal and underpaid." He sat back, speechless, his fake confidence slipping. "You'll regret this," he muttered. "I doubt it," I said. "You told me to try harder next year." "I did. Just not here." And with that, I walked out. The next 2 weeks were weird. Todd avoided me most days, but occasionally popped up to make fake small talk. Like if he acted nice enough, I'd stay. I didn't. My team, though, they were amazing. When word spread that I was leaving, people started stopping by my desk quietly, one by one. "Good for you, man," one whispered. "About time you got out," another said. Even Kevin, the guy who got the promotion, pulled me aside. "I wish I could follow you," he said. "They've got me locked in, and I hate it here." By the final Friday, it was clear everyone knew what Todd had lost. The office was quieter than usual. Nobody said anything directly to him, but the energy shifted. For the first time, I wasn't the one walking out late. I was the one everyone was watching with respect. At 4 o'clock sharp, I grabbed my things, unplugged that stupid printer, and left it on Todd's desk with a sticky note that said, "For visibility." No farewell email, no fake smiles, just a calm exit. As I walked through the parking lot, I half expected Todd to come running out with some last-minute offer, but he didn't. The man who once said I wasn't ready for a promotion couldn't even say goodbye. My phone buzzed as I started my car. It was a text from Lisa. Background cleared. Welcome to the team. Orientation Monday. I sat there for a second, engine humming, watching the gray building in the rearview mirror. That place had drained me for years. But now, it was just a dot in my past. I drove off smiling, not because I'd won, but because I was finally free. The same company that told me to be patient had just watched me walk away into something better. And for the first time in years, the future actually felt like mine. A year later, I barely recognized the person I'd been back at that old company. My days were balanced. No late-night calls, no fake urgent meetings, no being guilt-tripped into working weekends. Aerodyne treated me like a professional. My new boss actually listened when I spoke, and if something went wrong, we fixed it as a team instead of finding someone to blame. I'd gone from fighting for scraps to leading my own projects, managing budgets, and having engineers under me who genuinely respected me. The pay? Much more than what I made before, just like they promised. Even without the overtime, I had a team that trusted me, a manager who backed me up, and a company that valued results over brown-nosing. Most days I'd leave at 4:30, stop for dinner with my family, and still feel like I had energy left in the tank. For the first time in years, I wasn't constantly angry, tired, or second-guessing myself. The difference between being respected and being used is night and day. Then, one Thursday morning, I got an email from an old coworker, Ben, the guy Todd once told to treat the company like family. The subject line just said, "Guess who's in trouble?" I opened it, and the first line made me laugh out loud. "Your old boss is losing it. The system you built last year, it broke, and nobody knows how to fix it." Apparently, the company had landed another contract using the same tech I'd designed. But since Todd had been too cheap to hire anyone competent to maintain it, everything crashed mid-delivery. The Air Force wanted results, and the deadlines were brutal. They were scrambling. Later that day, while reviewing some design files, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something told me to pick up. "Hello?" I said. A familiar voice came through the line. "Hey, it's Todd." I leaned back in my chair, smiling already. "Wow, Todd, haven't heard from you in a while. What's up?" He cleared his throat, trying to sound confident but failing miserably. "Yeah, listen, we've run into a bit of a situation with one of your old systems. Nobody here understands the configuration, and the client's breathing down our necks. I was hoping you could maybe, help us out. Just walk us through it." I couldn't believe it. The same man who told me to try harder next year was now calling me for help. "I don't work for you anymore," I said casually. "I know," he said quickly, "but you built the original framework, and no one's been able to stabilize it. I'd really appreciate it if you could just try harder this year, Todd," I said. He went dead silent. "What?" "You heard me," I said, leaning forward. "You told me to try harder next year, remember?" "Well, I did. Now you can try fixing it yourself." Before he could respond, I hung up. For a second, I just sat there staring at my phone, grinning like a kid. Maybe what I did was petty, but it wasn't about revenge. It was about closure. The sound of his desperate voice was worth every sleepless night I'd spent under him. A few weeks later, Ben sent another update. "Todd's been demoted. Major client fallout. Management blamed him for the mess. He's not even in engineering anymore. Moved to special projects, which is basically corporate limbo." I didn't reply. I just leaned back in my chair, staring at the project board in my new office. When I met Captain Reyes again during a review call, he smiled and said, "Glad to see you ended up where you belong." That line stuck with me the rest of the day. Because he was right. I did belong here. Not chained to someone else's insecurities, not wasting my talent making someone else look good. That night, I took my family out to celebrate. Nothing fancy, just a quiet dinner and some laughter that didn't feel forced. My wife asked if I'd heard from anyone from the old place lately. "Yeah," I said. "Todd called a while back. Needed help." She laughed. "You didn't help him, did you?" I shook my head. "Nope. He got exactly what he earned." Todd thought keeping me small made him powerful, but all it did was make my growth impossible to ignore once I left. Now, every time my paycheck hits, I can't help but think back to his office. To that moment he said, "Try harder next year." And every single time I smile because I did. Just not for him. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way.